Hello, denizens. Welcome to another edition of Deep Thoughts. As the resident Canadian expert on YouTube, I've been encouraged to weigh in on the very controversial Internet Bill C10. To my global followers, from the United States to Australia to Brazil to the Netherlands, for some reason I have a large following in the Netherlands and Brazil, I will try to make this clear for all of you. You Americans won't understand what the brouhaha is about because you practically own the global entertainment landscape. But for the rest of you who also live in Hollywood's long shadow, you will understand completely. Our parliament in Canada here creates bills. Unlike you Yanks, we don't have cool names for our bills like your Voter Security Fairness Act, which translates into let's fuck over the black citizenry. What I find so great about your naming schemes is that the names mean the complete opposite of the intended purpose of your bill. Genius. Here in Canada, we have boring names like this Bill-C10, but we include just as much douchebaggery, we just do it in French. In a nutshell, Bill C10 is an amendment to our Broadcast Act, which hasn't been updated since 1991 when we could only access 3 channels, CBC, CTV, and the polar bear sightings in your area channel. Now that Canada has finally stopped using dial-up as of last year and adopted high-speed cable and DSL, it was time to try to manage the internet to protect us from ourselves. So, based on my reading, the 3 big things Bill C10 is trying to do is 1, label streaming content providers as broadcasters and coerce them to add Canadian content. 2, regulate suggestion or search algorithms so Canadian content would be prioritized. And 3, regulate online content ownership. I will quote from Bill C10's opening paragraph so you'll easily understand it. An act to promote the efficiency and adaptability of the Canadian economy by regulating certain activities that discourage reliance on an electronic means of carrying out commercial activities, and to amend the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commissions Act, the Competition Act, the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act, and the Telecommunications Act. Got it? Simple, didn't I tell you? As I was reading this, some Ottawa bureaucrat was masturbating to it. Let's start with number 1, or as we say here in French, numéro un, trying to strong-arm the streamers. The fight for getting Canadian content aired, especially in primetime, has been a battle that is older than the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and just as emotional. But while the concept of primetime is no longer very meaningful, I think there is a place for government to wield the big stick when a dominant U.S. entertainment entity can suck Canadian pesos out of the country while contributing nothing in return. I know you Americans will say, oh, but there's no quotas here in the United States. Yeah, of course, we know that. That's why all the actors in Hollywood are British, faking American accents because U.S. actors suck so badly. Still, to this day, it is cheaper for a Canadian broadcaster to buy a glossy American TV series than to produce original content here. It is extremely expensive. We have been fighting this losing battle for decades. We just want a tiny piece of that pie. And we're tired of having our best performers head off to Hollywood to find fame and fortune, although you can keep Bieber. Then there's the issue of lumping YouTube in with the streamers. That's a concern I have. YouTube has no gatekeeper. It is already an amazing democratized platform for anyone from anywhere speaking any language. Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, etc. have gatekeepers, and we have to pay extra for each of those services, like those old cable specialty channels. But I can't recall if anyone cared if HBO had Canadian content. Why then streamers? Well, maybe because the streamers are so dominant and available everywhere from your computer, your phone, game console, Android TV device. We don't need Rogers, Cogeco, Bell, Shaw, Videotron. Those are the AT&T's equivalent up here, to watch Netflix. Is it fair of Netflix to spirit all that cash out to offshore tax havens and not invest in the local creative community? I don't think so. Hey, Netflix, I have an idea. How about another wretched fantasy series featuring a tedious female lead who takes 6 goddamn episodes to discover her fantastic superpowers? We could do it in Algonquin Park instead of Romania. Voila! Canadian content. But neither do I trust our federal government. First of all, we have to deal with the usual bullshit. We have Canadian Heritage Minister Stephen Guilbeault, which is funny on 2 fronts. One, we actually have a Canadian Heritage Ministry. And secondly, of course, he has to be French Canadian, because you can't have an English Canadian Heritage Minister representing the majority Anglophone population, because that's just not how we do things here in Canada. When asked if Bill-C10 would give the Canadian Radio and Television Commission the power to regulate the algorithms that decide what you see on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Guilbeault Baggins would not respond, which is the second thing I wanted to talk about. The Canadian government wants to bend algorithms to its will, one algorithm to rule them all. But don't Apple Music and Netflix already prominently show Canadian offerings? Do we need to force them to suggest Canadian substitutions? Thank you for searching for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Perhaps you'd like to watch Schitt's Creek instead. I honestly don't know how that would work. The minister's response was, the concept of discoverability is ensuring that all parts of these platforms' Canadian content becomes more visible for Canadians. What does that mean as a practical experience? The main concern, however, is not so much what is in Bill-C10, but what was removed. Section 4.1, which exempted specifically social media platforms from CRTC regulations. Well, that's gone. The effect of removing it means that all user-generated content, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube videos, well, they might be subject to CRTC regulations. This means that Canadians will be directed to more TikTok videos of half-naked teens lip-syncing to Anne Murray, Lee Aaron, Bachman-Turner Overdrive, and April Wine. The government did amend the rules so the CRTC would concentrate on just 3 areas. The CRTC would be able to ask a platform just how much money it makes. That's a bit nosy. Number 2, the CRTC will be able to ask for a cut to funnel into Canadian cultural production funds. And 3, the CRTC will be able to force discovery requirements for Canadian creators. Say, since YouTube clearly restricts my view totals on purpose, maybe that's not such a bad idea. Come on, Bill-C10, hurry up! Existing radio, television, and cable companies have had to abide by similar content rules for decades. It's honestly not fair to give these new streamers a pass, don't you think? And finally, number 3, the issue of copyright. There is a troubling clause in Bill-C10 that could supersede YouTube's fair use rules. Bill-C10 makes it pretty clear that if you poach bits and pieces of Canadian content, that YouTube's fair use might not apply here in Canada. That would be hugely problematic. At least that's how I interpreted that section. I'm not a lawyer, and by the time I got to that part, I was about to shove 2 railway spikes into my eyes. There is a bit of scaremongering going on with our right-wing media and press regarding censorship. But I texted several conservative MPs who have promoted this conspiracy and asked where in the bill censorship was expressed, and no one has responded. The fear is that the government is going to reclassify an individual's videos as programs, which would then come under the CRTC's purview. But I think that's a long shot. They've got way more important things to do. That's it, denizens. I hope I've clarified this controversy that has gripped our country to its Precambrian core. As with any bill concocted by brilliant political minds, we will find out the unintended consequences only after they are safely receiving their lucrative pensions. By then, it'll be too late. Till next time, denizens, so long.